There we go. Okay, I've been informed that the live stream has started, so I'll just get started here. I do apologize. There's a little delay. Zoom wasn't allowing me to join this meeting, and so I got a passcode, and then I could join. And so, yeah, it is 7:08 a.m. where I am now, and that's Moorhead, Minnesota. I'm John David Berdahl. Hello, Aspie, writer, artist, musician, educator, presenter, and I've been presenting a whole bunch lately. Gosh, I was just presenting at an organization, or I guess a place in town called Prosville Center for Education. Okay, and there were about 50 educators, 50 professionals there, and we were talking about how to best educate kids or children or learners on the spectrum. All right, on the autism spectrum. And I myself am on the autism spectrum. I was diagnosed at 30 years old, and I'm 39 now. I'm going to be 40 this year. Woohoo! That's great. And one of the professionals there had asked a question, okay? And the question was, what's the difference between mirroring and masking when it comes to autism? And you know what? I thought I ought to present on that a little more in detail, or talk about that topic a little more in detail. So I'm going to do that today, all right, for probably an hour. Okay, and I suppose if there are any questions, they'll show up in the chat or something like that. And yeah, so thank you so much for allowing me to present on this topic, and I'll just get right into it. The title of this presentation is called Unveiling the Mask, Understanding Autistic Mirroring and Masking. Okay, and so before I get into some of the specifics, some more of the specifics or some of the details on this subject or on this issue, I ought to say that for me, I guess I ought to speak personally or from personal experience that because of something I had presented on before, and I can present on in more detail, hopefully in the future. Because of alexithymia, okay, because of the overlap with me of alexithymia and autism, I don't know really intrinsically how to like either desire or want or feel as though I ought to mask any symptoms, because going undiagnosed for about 30 years, for 3 decades, I wasn't really going through situations and thinking, oh, I ought to hide this, or I didn't even know I had symptoms of anything, not until gosh, marked differences really showed up later in life, like in college years. So masking for me is not something I've ever really done. And having presented now and having worked with clients as a DSP, or as just a life skills educator, if I may say that, like students and clients, and in that sort of role, yeah, I've seen masking go on, and I've talked about it with them. And yeah, it's not something, again, I emotionally understand or comprehend, but I do accept it, and so, but I haven't really done it myself. But mirroring, absolutely, I have done that so much. And so how about I get right into kind of what's the difference between, like, what is mirroring and masking? Like, what's the difference between the two? And how can we help individuals who do exhibit these types of characteristics or these types of behaviors? Autistic mirroring and masking are terms that shed light on the complex experiences of individuals on the autism spectrum. Sure. To truly understand and support individuals with autism, it is crucial to delve into the intricacies of these phenomena. Autistic mirroring refers to the tendency of individuals on the spectrum to imitate or mimic the behaviors, actions, or speech of others. Okay, so that's something that I had done quite a bit. In fact, it still sort of happens when I'm presenting. I do talk to people about how, like, this brain I've got tells me, and so I tell them I'm not hearing voices, okay? This brain that I've got fires, okay, in such a way to interpret the information. It tells me to become the information, to imitate the information, to copy the information, or mirror the information. And so that's something that human beings do, but individuals on the autism spectrum or on the spectrum, and in case we all, some of us, in case some of us don't know what the autism spectrum is, okay, that's the spectrum of symptoms or qualities that autistic individuals do what have or present. All right. And in classes, I tell people, like, the autism spectrum is not a straight line. Okay. The autism spectrum is more like a planet. Okay. And each of us with this diagnosis lives in a certain region on this planet with a certain degree of these symptoms. I'm considered a level 1. autistic individual, I don't really need that much support. Although when it does come to maybe joining a Zoom meeting, I need a little support more than others, or a little more immediately than others. So yeah, and then there's level 2 and level 3, and level 3 individuals do need quite a bit of support. Okay, and so yeah, us on the spectrum. So yeah, individuals on the spectrum are going to present these symptoms or qualities or attributes sometimes very differently. And so it's been said, when you've met one person with autism, you've met what? One person with autism. And so today you've met me with autism, and I am not exactly like every other person with autism, just like every person from Germany is not like every person from Germany, just like every person from Canada or South America or Asia, is not like every other person from Canada, South America, or Asia. Okay, and so hopefully that makes sense. And so mirroring is going to look a little different for each individual, although it's going to be a similar sort of imitation or copying of behavior, and you may see some echopraxia or echolalia or echolalia, depending on how you are going to pronounce that. Okay, it can manifest, so mirroring can manifest in various ways, such as adopting someone else's accent, repeating certain phrases or actions, or even mirroring facial expressions. And that's something that does happen with me. Like, if the facial expression is pretty extreme, this face will sort of do it. I have to make certain I maintain kind of intentional focus and don't just become someone else. This mirroring behavior is not driven by a desire to deceive or manipulate, but rather as a means of social connection or assimilation. Okay, and that's why some people, concerning manipulation, that's how some people do become really unsettled with me when I do kind of mirror their behavior or mirror their conduct or something like that, because they think I'm doing it to become their friend or to get something from them, to take advantage of them, because manipulators and narcissists absolutely do mirror behavior. So you really, really like them, really adore them, really approve of them, and then they'll start taking your resources. Okay, that's kind of the honeymoon period. I do not do that sort of thing. I do not know how to want other people's possessions or other people's, I suppose, riches or something like that. Again, that deals with alexithymia intrinsically. I don't know how to feel that. Hunger, maybe. So yeah, but that does happen. Some people think I'm attempting to trick them, and I'm not. And so one of the ways that we can support individuals who are mirroring to quite a large degree, unintentionally mirroring, and so they really don't have an identity or sense of self like myself until I was 30 years old. Now I really do have a sense of self that I've cultivated and fostered and really built. Is just be patient with them and look at how, I suppose, ethical they are if you have the time. How much it is that they are, golly, um, yeah, hopefully they're not malevolent. Look for any sort of malevolence, any sort of meanness, any sort of, cruelty, mixed with the mirroring. If there's none of that, then, the individual is probably just, yeah, copying, just because they don't understand what's going on, instead of, being your best bud or being your best friend or something like that, until they can, yes, get a hold of everything that you've got and just support themselves. On the other hand, autistic masking refers to the conscious or subconscious effort of individuals with autism to camouflage their true selves and adapt to social norms and expectations. It involves suppressing their natural behaviors, interests, or sensory sensitivities to conform to social standards. This masking can be incredibly exhausting and can lead to feelings of anxiety, frustration, and loss of identity. Okay, and so concerning masking, one of the things that comes up, or one of the points that comes up in a lot of the classes that I do teach, autism classes, and with some of the clients that I do have, is why does it take so long to diagnose women with autism spectrum disorder? Or like, why does it take so long to diagnose women, biological, I suppose I have to say, biological women, with any sort of like neurodivergent or neuroatypical condition? It's because women, and this isn't something I just came up with, these women themselves with autism, with ADHD, with OCD, with I don't know about ODD. I do believe I haven't met, but schizophrenia. Um, they'll talk about how they just naturally mask as women. And so they will, knowing that they ought to, yes, conform, or they have this sort of relational intelligence that allows them to understand or permits them to understand that it's like, I better behave this way. Otherwise, people are going to, yeah, call me out on something or reject me or something like that, or not allow me to be a part of this group or this, I don't know, maybe culture, or community. And so that's why it can take quite a long time to diagnose women, I suppose, with anything, because they're not presenting some of these symptoms or some of these qualities or characteristics, as I had said. And like concerning autism, mirroring behavior and repetitive behavior. And there we go. And there we go. Perseveration, something like that. And there we go. Not presenting some of the interpersonal sort of difficulties because they're just covering them up. Because they realize that they ought to. And so, that's something to think about. So for me, I wasn't hiding anything. So it was kind of, I suppose, quick to diagnose me with certain things. By understanding the intricacies of autistic mirroring and masking, we can create a more inclusive and supportive environment for individuals on the autism spectrum. It requires compassion, empathy, and a willingness to embrace neurodiversity. There we go. And so let's move on here. There. This time, during this presentation, I thought, I'm going to write some notes. There we go. There. For many individuals with autism, mirroring serves as a way to navigate and adapt to social situations that might otherwise feel overwhelming and confusing by observing and mimicking the behavior of others. They can blend in and appear more socially adept, even if they may not fully understand the underlying social dynamics. Okay, and so I was talking with one student about scripting, and was scripting a form of mirroring? And I suppose so. I'm not going to, I suppose it depends on what is going on with the scripting, and again, how intentional the scripting is. And so for me, concerning scripting and mirroring, like I watched like a whole bunch of movies as a kid. In fact, I still watch movies, and I utilized movies as a tool to, I guess I mirrored what I saw in films, because not so much like I was really sheltered. I may have been a little neglected, maybe a lot neglected as a kid. But I utilized movies as a means of understanding the world I was in. And I had thought that movies were educational sort of tools. I thought Ghostbusters, the film Ghostbusters, was an educational film. And then I was going to become a Ghostbuster at some point. Oh, and I suppose, fun fact, Ghostbusters was written by an individual on the autism spectrum. Dan Aykroyd was diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome. Technically, just like myself, I was diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome, but that's been folded into autism spectrum disorder. And so Ghostbusters is an autistic movie. Hooray! So I support that franchise. Go see the new film, right? Frozen Empire. And so, so I mirrored what I saw in these films, and I sort of scripted that way. I repeated like the dialogue in the films, thinking I was communicating with people because I was just repeating what was said in the film, what was said in this context, and I talk about that too. It's like for 30 years, I got context really well because yes, I'm very, very intelligent. Yes, I've been tested, I am technically a genius, but that doesn't make me better than anyone else. I do say sometimes it makes me perhaps more necessary, but not better. It's just like a screwdriver. I told these educators at this Prosfield Center for Education, or this department connected to Moorhead Area Public Schools, who I do work for. I work in the grade schools and the middle school, teaching students there or young learners. And so I told them it's a tool. It's like a screwdriver. Being a genius, or having genius is just like having a screwdriver. It's what you do with it that counts. Okay, and so I just do the most good right now with the people around me. Okay, and so let's get back to mirroring. Autistic mirroring is often an unconscious and automatic response. Okay, so that's one of the big differences between mirroring and masking. The mirroring is going to be more automatic. It's going to be more reflex, whereas masking, I suppose it can become sort of reflex, but it's very, very intentional. Okay, it was just like I just mentioned, it's about conforming. Okay, so mirroring, driven by a desire to fit in, seen as a, and avoid drawing unwanted attention or scrutiny. It is important to note that mirroring should not be seen as a deceptive or manipulative act. Rather, it is a coping mechanism that individuals with autism may employ as a means of navigating the world that is not always attuned to their unique needs and communication styles. Okay, so again, for 30 years, I was just copying unintentionally, right? Copying everything that was around me, everyone that was around me. All right. And so again, human beings do this, especially like best friends. They'll start to talk like one another. They'll start to walk like one another. Families will do the same sort of thing because they're so close. All right. But autistic individuals, their brains, none of this input is really making a lot of sense. And so they just become what's around them, just to make sense of it. And that's why it can be really difficult for them to understand, especially again, if they have that overlap of alexithymia and they don't know how to innately feel about things. Okay. And so if they just go along with everything, they just go with the flow, literally, also being literal minded, very, very much. If they go with the flow with everything, they're going to end up in places they had not even thought they would be because that's just where the flow took them. And that can be really difficult. So as a family member or as a friend or as I guess, guardian or individual support staff of an individual who's on the spectrum, who is mirroring quite a bit, do just, again, be patient with them and model the behavior that they ought to be mirroring. That's kind of, I don't know about the responsibility that you may have, but that's one of the big ways that you can assist them, is show them the way that they ought to be progressing through something or proceeding through something. And that will help them out so much. That's what helped me. Once I found like the way through this all, through all of this, I suppose, chaos, or just real life. Once I found the way through this real life, and it's kind of like, oh, okay, that's the path, that's the direction. All right, thank you very much. Again, now I'm a level 1, level 2 may not, immediately a level 2 individual or an individual with an autism diagnosis that's considered a level 2 and needs that much support, which is often like shadowing at work, maybe needing to live in, I don't know about a group home or something like that, but not living independently, totally independently, and having certain, services come in or around to bolster, or to provide a lot. It may not immediately sink in, the path that you're showing the person, but continue to model it anyway. The right sort of behavior, the right sort of conduct, the right sort of thing to do. There we go. Understanding, and back to mirroring, understanding autistic mirroring is essential for creating inclusive and supportive environments. Yes. Here we go. So let's move on. Move on from there. Okay. Moreover mirroring. There we go. Moreover mirroring can be a learned behavior that individuals with autism. Moreover mirroring can be a learned behavior that individuals with autism develop over time. They may recognize that mirroring allows them to navigate social situations more smoothly and receive positive feedback from others. Of course, if you're mirroring someone else's behavior or personality, often they're going to like you quite a bit, because often people like themselves. There we go. It is important to note that while mirroring can be beneficial in certain situations, it can also be exhausting for individuals with autism, constantly mimicking others' behaviors and suppressing their own natural inclinations. See, now for me, I don't really run into that because I don't really know how to have natural inclinations, per se. And so that's, I guess, how I've been pretty fortunate, that the mirroring that's gone on with me hasn't gotten in the way of, I guess, me being me, because I don't know how to be me. And that's another conversation, isn't it? Like identity and autism. Here we go. It is crucial to create inclusive environments that embrace neurodiversity and allow individuals with autism to express themselves freely without the pressure to constantly mirror others. And again, it's kind of like, once you're aware that the person, there we go, scroll down. Once you're aware that the person or the patient or the client is mirroring quite a bit. One of the ways to help them is, yes, model good behavior, and also not allowing them to mirror to a certain degree. And if anyone has any questions about that, like how do you do that? Because it's not as simple as just saying, hey, stop it, but it's kind of like, I tell people it's like going halfway with individuals. I go, like with clients, I only go about halfway And that's not me hiding things. That's not me like, and we're getting into masking now. I'm not masking things per se. It's just that I'm not giving them, I guess all of me. I'm not giving them all of me. I'm just, I'm being pretty measured and pretty calculated and pretty careful and deliberate about what I say and what I'm talking about, so they don't just take it and run with it. Okay. And I'm not saying it's just like hanging out with little kids, although sometimes it's very similar, very, I guess, impressionable individuals, and often like grade schoolers, what we call grade school, and that's elementary school. Um, yeah, here in the United States. Yeah. Individuals, kids from, gosh, what would that be? Kind of 7 years old to 10 years old, maybe 6 years old, 7 years old to 10 years old. They will just, do what it is that you do, show them, and so, just like with kind of small children, individuals on the spectrum who do not have a certain amount of emotional awareness or relational awareness. I don't know about wisdom, but experience, exposure and experience to certain things, exposure to certain things and experience with certain things. I only give them a certain amount of information, or I only give them a certain amount of input, and so they can't really adopt everything that I am or everything that I'm talking about. And so that's one of the ways that can really help out, back to mirroring. So understanding, there we go. Mirroring and masking can be complex, but hearing real life examples and personal experiences can provide valuable insights. And that's, again, talk to the individual. And that's what I'm also offering too. Um, all of you, all of the individuals who are participating in this. And thank you so much for doing that or joining this. One common example of mirroring is when an autistic individual imitates the behaviors, speech patterns, and mannerisms of others in an attempt to blend in or fit in social situations. For instance, they might mimic the tone of voice, body language, or even the interests and hobbies of their peers. There we go. This mirroring behavior helps them navigate social interactions and appear more neurotypical. But of course, they're doing it. Often mirroring, again, is unintentional. It's not, gosh, I'm going to only mirror this or only mirror that. It's kind of, you get, it's a, I was about to say, it's a total package. Okay. It's a total package. They just take in all of it and they just give all of it back or reflect all of it. Okay. In terms of masking, individuals on the autism spectrum often develop coping mechanisms to camouflage, once again, their behaviors, which are repetitive movements, actions, that provide comfort or self-regulation, like stimming. In fact, during this presentation for Moorhead Area Public Schools, that came up. Hey, am I supposed to stop a student from stimming? Okay, while I'm teaching the lesson, because I think it was making the educator, I don't know about uncomfortable, but maybe it was kind of distracting the educator. And I had said, like, no, don't do that, because that's like a self-soothing or self-regulating sort of behavior. And if you do ask that the student to stop, or make that student perhaps feel uncomfortable or feel, I don't know about unwanted, or, you know, gosh, disagreed with, or unnatural, let's say that, unnatural, right? The student may learn that, gosh, the lesson that may be learned is that the student ought to hide that or ought to mask that sort of behavior. And so it's like, hey, let's not do that. Let's not teach people to mask things. Because again, it can be so draining, it can be so exhausting, it can be so frustrating, and it can be so harmful, to mask to a certain degree. Gosh, and so there are many examples. Oh, so let me get back to masking. So for instance, an autistic individual may avoid flapping their hands. Okay, so that's one self-regulating, perhaps behavior, stimming behavior, or rocking back and forth in public, right? Settings to avoid drawing attention, right? Or facing potential judgment. All right, and so hopefully that educator learned, hey, let's not judge this student. Let's not judge this individual. Let's just accept. It's like, hey, if you need to do that, whatever it is, hand flapping, go right ahead. And then talking to the class, and saying, hey, you know what? As an educator myself, I'll say, hey, let's all do that. And not to just say, hey, let's all just pretend to be autistic. Let's all see, what the benefits are of just kind of, letting something out, and working through something, and then getting back to the task that, I don't know, was supposed to be worked on according to the lesson plan, because of course, not everything goes to plan, does it? There we go, or ought to. Personal experiences of autistic individuals further illustrate the challenges and impacts of constantly monitoring and mimicking others' behaviors. Individuals with autism may struggle with a sense of identity. Absolutely, yes. As they navigate between their true selves and the persona they present to the world. Okay, and again, that's not something that I really had to experience too much because I didn't really have a persona. I was like 100% just the symptoms I was exhibiting. I totally just, I absolutely, totally, 100%. Let's say that, definitely. Certainly. Gosh, I'm perseverating right now. I better stop. I'm on that track. But I do just tell people, like, yeah, I'm autistic. All right. I identify myself with the diagnosis I've got because for so many years I just was that. I wasn't John or John David. I was just this collection of responses, to the information, to the sensory input. And now I can aim it, is what I tell people. Now that I'm aware of what it is that I do, experience or have, or the type of brain that I do possess. Yeah. Or outlook, maybe, outlook and lifestyle that I do possess in addition to a brain or a mind, with these processes or processes that I do have. Gosh, yeah, I'm totally autistic. And yeah, you can call me John, you can call me John David, but I have autism, and I'm just going to, do the best that I can to make certain that what it is that I do accomplish, or what it is that I do achieve, and what it is that I do say makes sense to you as much as possible. Here we go. Yeah, let's move on from that. There we go. Let's move on to masking specifically. Okay, so autistic masking, now that we've kind of segued into that. So yeah, I haven't really felt, again, I began with talking about feeling uncomfortable or feeling unsettled or feeling nervous, and deliberately or cautiously, or even, I suppose, furtively, hiding something or obfuscating something, or masking something as it does pertain to myself, so that do fit in. I haven't done that. I'm not even doing that now during this presentation. Okay, like, yeah, I'm clearing this throat because I didn't grab a glass of water to have or to drink. But also, I'm talking about the symptoms of autism that I'm presenting as they are occurring right in front of you, like I talked about perseverating and, yeah, being literal minded. And with the memory that I've got too, like with the notes that I have, I can just, talk and then go back to the notes. I don't know how to be lost in what I'm working on because, yeah, I have an eidetic memory, I found out. And if anyone, like, I don't have a photographic memory, I have an eidetic memory. And the difference between the two is, it's like, yeah, photographic memory is more, yeah, totally, I suppose, clear. Yeah, you get that picture with it, but also that is a much more long-term sort of thing. Eidetic memory is a little more short-term. In fact, it's supposed to, I don't know about wear away, but kind of disappear as one gets closer to adulthood. It's more a childhood sort of thing, and so I still retain it. And I guess I've been attempting to make the joke. It's like, gosh, I'm going to remain a kid forever because I have an eidetic memory. And so, yeah, I have, or I am more of an eidetecher than what? Individual with this kind of clear and crisp memory. I still am in the memories that I have. I'm still in that sort of recollection, or what it is that I can recall. I'm still, I guess, reliving all of that. But again, it's more like reading a book, I tell people, than seeing a picture, like a clear picture. I don't have that for a memory. It's more like I've got this book that's the memory, and I can just read all the information on pages. And so that's how it's a little different, for me, and how it's a little different for others. Anyway, masking. Let's get back to that. So yeah, because some people have a really hard time with it, like not knowing when to stop masking. Whereas mirroring, again, because that's unintentional, that's just going to go and go and go, or it's going to be, I don't know about as harmless, but it's going to be something that perhaps is integrated a little quicker into what we may call a personality or persona instead of masking, that keeps one from, again, perhaps being themselves. And so, yeah, also known as camouflaging. I had talked about camouflage as a phenomenon that is gaining recognition within the autism community. Yep, I'm hearing about it much more. It refers to the act of individuals with autism there we go, consciously or unconsciously, and often it's consciously, altering their behavior, appearance, or interests to fit in with neurotypical society or societal expectations. This masking can manifest in various ways, such as mimicking facial expressions. So I can understand why this educator or this professional would ask, like, what's the difference between the two, or are they the same thing? And they're not. Mirroring and masking. And so back to masking. For many individuals on the autism spectrum, masking becomes a survival strategy, okay, to navigate a world that may not fully understand or accept their differences. Okay, so one of the big differences, okay, besides like between mirroring and masking, besides just one being intentional or unintentional and one being intentional, is insight. Okay, and so individuals who mirror quite a bit and aren't really masking don't, and I ought not to just be too black and white here, although, hey, we're talking about autism. um, but on the whole, individuals who mirror more than mask don't really have a sort of insight into a kind of, yes, relational insight or cultural sort of insight, or I said societal sort of insight, okay, or awareness. And so they're not going to do some things to hide, or to fit in. Their brains are going to do it, again, unintentionally, to cope with information concerning mirroring. They're going to cope with the information or the, foreign nature of what's going on, the foreign nature, the foreign aspects, all right, of foreign aspects of typical sort of situations. They're going to copy that, so they just go along with things or get along with things. But when it comes to masking, there's an insight there. There's an awareness there. There's an intelligence there. All right. There's I'm not going to say suffering, but there is a sort of lack there. There's a lack of belonging and perhaps a want to belong. And so masking will occur. Okay. In fact, yeah, it's a mechanism. Masking is a mechanism adopted in an attempt to appear more normal. Okay. And let's just let that sink in for a moment. That individuals who mask quite a bit are attempting to appear normal. All right. And so many people say or ask, what is normal? What is that? It's a setting on a machine, or it's a concept, right? An outdated sort of concept. And so we ought to be a little more serious here and be definitely emotionally aware that some people have suffered, or some people have been hurt or harmed or judged too harshly or too significantly. And so I think we ought to, I don't know, not offer a moment of silence so much, but at least show some reverence and some deference for that. And for that it ought to be pretty sad situation, pretty sad arrangement, that sort of injury. Okay. We ought to take a moment, just pause a moment and, just be really sorry that injuries like that have occurred, where someone was told, hey, stop doing that, or that's really dumb, or you're really stupid, or I hate that, or I hate you. And I'm not saying that. I'm not saying we ought to say that. That's what we ought not to do. Okay, is attack people for being who it is that they think that they ought to be, or conducting themselves in the way that they think they ought to conduct themselves. Now, if they are what mirroring or masking in a harmful sort of way, we ought to attempt to deter that as much as possible. And I do that. I do bring an end to that kind of problem. Okay. I bring an end to that sort of problem in the classroom with clients that I work with, whether in one situation or another in the home, or if we're shopping or something like that, activities, performing activities of daily living. I just shut that down. I shut down harmful behavior, especially individuals thinking that they ought to mask. And how do I do that? I model, again, the unnecessary, to say I unmodel the unnecessary, but I model necessary sort of behavior, like just accepting ourselves, praising ourselves, respecting ourselves, and saying, you know what, I don't have to mask. I can be myself. I can do this. And if someone is going to attack me or judge me or believe that I am not worthy of something like that, then I just model again how that's unnecessary, to keep in this sort of life, or in this sort of, there we go, I had said lifestyle, but um, in this sort of experience, that we're having. So why do individuals with autism, I ought to move on from that. Why do individuals with autism mask their true selves? So individuals with autism often engage in a behavior known as masking, right? To fit into societal situations. Yes, this masking can manifest in various ways, such as imitating facial expressions. Yep, we know that. Another factor influencing autistic masking is the struggle to communicate effectively. Autistic individuals often face challenges in expressing their thoughts, emotions, and needs in a way that neurotypical individuals understand. To bridge this communication gap, they may resort to copying social cues and mirroring others' behaviors. Okay, so again, mirroring and masking are not the same thing, but I did tell this educator who had asked the question, right, are mirroring and masking the same thing? Sometimes individuals who are masking will choose to mirror in the process of masking, right, or in the attempt, right, endeavor to mask. They will mirror behavior, to sort of hide things or to camouflage, or obscure some things about themselves, right? Especially like a communication gap, not really understanding, okay, the give and take of a conversation. Or it's like if they've been scripting a whole bunch, I talked about that, like just responding, thinking they ought to respond to people with quotes from movies or with quotes from songs, like lyrics from songs or something like that. And so there are these moments where it's kind of like, I haven't heard a song that deals with this. I haven't seen a movie that deals with this. I haven't played a video game that deals with this. And so they don't know how to, really express themselves in that language that they have now, which is just media, that they've consumed. And so they will, if there's that, again, insight, that they have, that smarts that they've got, or the recognition, right? This recognition that there's now a deficit, and that they may be potentially rejected or left alone or something like that, or cast out, or something like that. Then they will adopt mirroring to just, get past it, get through it, whereas individuals who are mirroring are just mirroring, it's like none of this is really making any sense. So they're just mirroring everything, and again, it is for coping, but it's not about hiding. An individual like myself, I would mirror other individuals on the spectrum, so I wouldn't like adopt, I wouldn't like internalize all of their symptoms, but I would show them, and I would show the symptoms of, I had spent a lot of time with individuals who have been and most likely ought to be diagnosed with like bipolar disorder. And for a while, I was actually diagnosed first with bipolar disorder because I was part of a friend group that was just so, woo, peak drop, peak drop, peak drop, or extremes, manic depressive, manic depressive, manic depressive. And so once I was out of that, I was diagnosed. It took a couple of years, but I was diagnosed correctly with autism. There we go. Additionally, let's get back to masking. So additionally, masking can be a response to sensory overload. Many individuals with autism experience sensory sensitivities, where certain stimuli, such as loud noises or bright lights, can feel overwhelming and distressing in an effort to regulate their sensory experiences and minimize discomfort. They may adopt behaviors that are more socially acceptable or typical to avoid sensory overload. See, now I've experienced that overload. I haven't really experienced a meltdown because I don't know how to be connected to feelings as much as others are. And so I don't really have those moments of distress or disturbance or something like that. But I have been definitely overwhelmed, and I have to sort of reboot, as it were. A couple of years ago, that actually happened. I was in a very, very sort of abusive situation, and I wasn't aware of it until it finally just blew up in this face. And it was just kind of like, whoa. And I was just told to get the heck out, because I was the one being told that I'm bad or something like that, and I'm wrong. And I don't know about evil. Let's not go that far, but just um, gosh, trouble. That I was the trouble. When I was attempting to resolve a situation or a conflict or something like that through, yes, a bit of confrontation, and that's what led to a sort of gosh, just an eruption, as it were, of other people's feelings and other people's rage, and aggression. Yeah. And so anyway, so it was just way too much. It was way too much coming at me all at once. And yeah, I totally overloaded. And it took a few days for me to really, I suppose, process what was going on, but just come back to reality. Okay, to come back to reality. And I suppose I could have masked at that time, but I guess maybe I lack a sort of insight in that way in myself or in a situation. But mostly I just slowly, just kind of returned. Gosh, I didn't recreate myself, but I kind of refounded myself. And I talked to people who really, yes, do support me and said, hey, it sounds like you're dealing with this. It sounds like you're dealing with that. Probably, continue to do this or continue to do that. And then, yeah, I was back to, I don't know about being functional, but speaking in a way that people understood, um, and relating to others in a way that they understood. Because I couldn't, I guess, form the words. I couldn't, yeah, I couldn't explain a whole bunch. And yeah, it's just like this operating system that I do have just needed some time to, put things back in place, and then it could start running programs, programs as it were, which is my life. There we go. Yeah, so accepting environments allows us to express, yeah, authentic selves. So basically, one of the big ways, and it looks like we got about 10 minutes left or something like that. So crucial to masking behaviors and strategies. Okay, so we're still talking about masking. So there. Well, masking can help autistic individuals navigate social situations more easily. It comes at a feeling, uh, there we go, at a feeling cost. The constant effort to mask their true selves, these autistic individuals, can lead to exhaustion, anxiety, and a sense of feeling inauthentic. It is crucial to understand and acknowledge the challenges faced by autistic individuals engaged in masking and provide them with support and acceptance. Okay, support and acceptance. All right. Well, one of the big ways that we can, I don't know about eliminating these behaviors, because I do believe they ought not to be, to say we need to eliminate them, is another form of kind of like judgment. Gosh, it's like, no, let's allow people to just be, and be themselves. And I think that's the way to, I suppose, eliminate, or we need to underline it, eliminate this type of behavior, where it's like you don't even have to do it because, you're just welcome, you're included, right? And so neurotypical behavior. Before I do go, I have to talk about that. And there's so much more that we can discuss, especially like stimming and displaying neuroatypical traits. But I ought to talk about, because some people joke like, okay, what is normal? All right. Autistic individuals may observe and imitate the actions, speech patterns, and social cues of those around them in an effort to blend in and appear, what was it again? Normal or neurotypical. This can include mimicking facial expressions, as I talked about, body language, and then tone of voice, of course. By doing so, they hope to navigate social interactions more smoothly and avoid standing out or drawing attention to their differences. However, mirroring neurotypical behavior can be mentally and emotionally exhausting and even detrimental, right? Sometimes I tell people it's like putting the wrong type of gas in the vehicle. Yeah, it'll run for a little while, but then you're going to do a whole bunch of damage. Okay, that's not the type of fuel, that's not the type of means to get to where it is that you ought to be going. Yeah, and so mimicking, right? We're talking about mimicking, the idea of mimicking. There's a survival strategy developed by autistic individuals to navigate a world that may not always understand or accept their unique perspectives and ways of being. By recognizing and acknowledging the challenges faced by individuals who engage in autistic mirroring and masking, we can work towards creating a more inclusive and accepting society. Okay, so what is an inclusive and accepting society? What is support? All right, I think that's really, really crucial that we talk about that. Providing support, understanding, and accommodating. autistic individuals. How do we accommodate them? And I'm skipping ahead in some of these notes. The consequences of masking, right? Increased stress, burnout. Oh my gosh. So yeah, acceptance, authenticity. There we go. There we go, supporting. Okay, so do these notes. Okay, so recognizing and supporting individuals who mask is crucial in fostering understanding and inclusivity within the autistic community. Masking, again, also referred to as camouflaging, is a mechanism commonly employed by individuals on the spectrum to navigate social situations. Okay, so they believe that they ought to, hide or blend in, right? They ought to blend in because of one experience or another that has taught them that they ought to not be themselves. Okay, so again, concerning support, one of the first steps in recognizing and supporting individuals, right? So think about that they had to suppress who they are, right? Or what they are, just so they can get something done, just so they can have friends, just so they can have, I guess, a life. And of course, these are their feelings, and feelings aren't necessarily facts. Not every human being has treated them poorly, but they've experienced it enough where they think they ought to, right? Camouflage, blend in, look like everyone else, be normal, right? One of the first steps in recognizing and supporting individuals who mask is to educate ourselves about the concept. And so thank you so much for allowing me to talk about this sort of concept or this sort of subject, the difference, right, between mirroring and masking, unveiling the mask, understanding autistic mirroring and masking, right? And peeling away, hopefully, the mask, which would be great. By understanding the reasons behind masking, okay, its potential impact, we can create a more empathetic and inclusive environment. This includes challenging stereotypes and misconceptions around autism, as well as promoting acceptance and respect for neurodiversity. In supporting individuals who mask, it is crucial, right, or it is vital, let me say that, to provide a safe and understanding space for them to express their authentic selves. Okay? Now, some individuals with autism, like myself, did not have an authentic self, an autistic self, until I was 30 years old. Think about that. 30 years. I didn't know how to be me for 30 years. And I imagine there were some people who were shaming me and blaming me and guilting me and insulting me. But I didn't know how to, again, internalize that. I didn't know how to hold on to that. I didn't know how to be hurt. And again, I can talk about that subject once again. That would be really, really helpful. Again, the overlap of alexithymia and autism. I didn't know how to dwell or feel any of the pain that was attempted to be, any of the wounds that were attempted to be inflicted on me. So I didn't believe I ought to mask. But there are some individuals, yes, who have been hurt so much that they're not themselves. They're not their true, authentic selves. So how do we make certain they can be themselves? This can be achieved by actively listening to their needs and experiences, validating their feelings, and encouraging open communication, creating a supportive network, both within personal relationships and in wider communities. And doing so can make a significant difference in the lives of those who mask. Additionally, it is important to provide resources and access to professional help for individuals who may be struggling with the effects of masking. Therapy, counseling, and support groups tailored to specific needs of autistic individuals can be invaluable in providing guidance and assistance. Ultimately, recognizing and supporting individuals who mask is a vital step. Yes, vital, 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 important, right? Step towards fostering inclusivity, understanding, and acceptance. So by embracing neurodiversity and celebrating the unique strengths and experiences of each individual, we can create a more compassionate society that values and uplifts everyone, respective of their masking tendencies. So let's talk about listening. Okay, what to take away from that one? Listening to the person, validating the person, is really going to help out if they've gone beyond sort of mirroring, or just copying, and now they are the recognizing, I had said, or they are very cognizant. If the person is cognizant of how different they are, and now they believe that they ought to be normal or normative, and not be themselves, be inauthentic, let's say that, or put on some sort of performance. Ooh, just listen to them. Be patient. You know, you've heard me say that, be patient, but also just listen to them and validate them. And yes, include them in so much, include them in everything. I mean, when it makes sense to, of course, there are some things you're supposed to do on your own or without certain individuals. But if there is the possibility that they can be included or that they can participate in something and contribute only what it is that they can contribute, which is their thoughts, their feelings, their intentions, and their interests, do allow them to do that. Okay. And so identifying signs of masking. Okay. Uh, let's talk just a bit about that. While masking can help individuals with autism blend in, right, with their peers in situations more effectively, it often comes at a cost to their mental and emotional well-being. One common sign of masking is excessive social mimicry. Okay, so watch out for that. If you're going to be supporting an individual who may be masking or mirroring, so why support someone who's mirroring? Because mirroring is just, again, coping or copying. It's like, well, the person isn't really learning, like for me, okay, how I was sort of challenged. And again, like I did have, I was diagnosed by a specialist who really did a great job of, and that's where I learned the sort of halfway approach. She only went halfway with things. So I had to kind of complete, I don't know about sentences, but I had to complete certain thoughts. I had to complete certain ooh, actions or activities, okay, in my own life. I wasn't just given all the information, then I just did it, or I didn't just emulate it or imitate it. I was given great sort of springboard sort of questions or jumping off points, and so she would only explain something sort of halfway and then tell me, hey, you do your homework, or you think about this, or you look into it, and then we'll get back together, and then you'll tell me about it. Or she would just, not so much stop talking, but she would, and it wasn't like I was given fragments of a conversation. Oh gosh, it's 8 o'clock. So yeah, I ought to wrap this up a little bit. I think I got a couple more minutes. So if it's an hour, and again, thank you so much for allowing me to talk about this subject. So, she would conduct me, only to a point. She would show me, display or relay something, or a thought or a kind of, gosh, I was going to say mission, but a lesson. She would conduct this sort of lesson, right? Only to a point, and allow me to gain the type of insight that I was supposed to need, instead of just showing me and then I would just do it. And again, with the memory that I've got, I would just retain it, of course, what I was supposed to do, but I didn't meaning. Okay. She taught me meaning instead of context by allowing me to fill in the blanks, so to speak. And that's one of the ways that we can help individuals who may be mirroring. We allow them to start filling in some of the blanks, but if they've learned that they ought to mask quite a bit, because of wounds that they have or harm that's been done or judgments, right? Or judging that they've experienced, right? And so if they're excessively, right, mimicking behavior or whatnot, it's like, gosh. So one of the ways, masking excessive social mimicry. Okay, if they're exhibiting, right, or if you're seeing excessive social mimicry, you ought to sort of challenge them, and not just put them down, because this behavior is driven by a desire to fit in and avoid standing out as different. You ought not to just like call them out, but again, listen and validate, and accept and say, those are your feelings. And if you believe you're supposed to feel that way, okay, but you don't have to do that, So create a safe and accepting environment, right? And how do you do that? Right? It is essential to foster a culture of acceptance and understanding. Educate yourself and others about autism spectrum disorders, including the concept of mirroring and masking for these concepts, and the unique experiences and perspectives of individuals on the spectrum. Remember, when you've met one individual on the spectrum, what is it? Oh, wait, I can't hear you. You've met one individual on the spectrum. Thank you for meeting me today. Thank you so much. Right? And so let's make certain that we offer people empathy and understanding, right? And let's promote self-acceptance and self-expression, encourage self-discovery and self-advocacy, and celebrate neurodiversity, celebrate differences, okay? And help these individuals, help them build a support network, a circle, make certain they have friends, make certain they have people around them, who do not, I suppose, judge them. And remember, building a support network is not a one-size-fits-all sort of situation or approach. It may take time to find the right combination of individuals and resources that best work for a person. And so be persistent and be open-minded, in helping this person, make certain this individual, right? If it's a client, student, even if it's yourself, right? Be patient, persistent, open-minded as you or others navigate this journey with a strong support network by your side or by their side. You can unveil the mask and embrace your true self and confidence, with confidence and understanding. Yep. And so we need to support. And so there we go. How to find that unique ability. A question from the comments. So how to find that unique ability? So with unique ability, is one talking about like a network? Is that what you mean? To find that? I'll give it a moment. There. How to find that unique ability. So as with finding anything, it's like kind of, how do you discover something? How do you just allow an individual, or you allow or certain I was about to say group. Oh, special talent. Ooh, okay. Thank you for clarifying a little bit. How do you find that? I was actually participating concerning finding autistic kid may have gifted. Ah, okay. So how do you find that unique gift, right? That special talent, right? That may be hidden underneath, the mirroring or the masking, and that's kind of what I'm taking from that, and I ought to address it right away. So there are two situations that I had been in concerning like being gifted, okay, and how to help an individual show their gifts, okay. And so I was actually chatting with Temple Grandin. I don't know if, and it wasn't like we had this hour-long conversation or something like that, but I was participating in a conference, okay, and we were chatting, and one of the things she talked about concerning work. Okay, how do I find work for my autistic child? Because that can be sort of difficult. And she had talked about exposure, interest, mentoring. Okay, exposure, interest, mentoring. All right, so how does that apply to like showing gifts or finding gifts, that unique ability? Okay, is allowing the child, allowing the person, allowing the individual to show those unique gifts. Okay, and sometimes those are considered like splinter skills. I don't know if anyone's really aware of what those are. Okay, so those are skills that don't seem to kind of connect with anything, or they don't seem to be, it doesn't seem like they can be turned into a sort of career, but those totally can be integrated. Okay, once you find out kind of what they look like and what it is that they totally are. Like I work with clients who are so fascinated or so, I don't know about fixated or obsessed, but immersed in like philosophy, okay, or psychology themselves, of course, because they're trying to sort out everything that's going on around them. And they are so very gifted, so very intelligent. So I just let them explain and explain and explain. I just let them dive into it, okay, and tell me all about it. And I'll be like, just tell me, all right, tell me too much. I'll tell them that, like, just give it all to me. And they just open up. And then I can find out, what it is that they know about. I can find out more about these gifts, okay? And so basically that's a type of exposure. I guess I'm offering them this exposure, this acceptance, the exposure to acceptance. All right. And then there's an interest. And then with that, I kind of mentor. It's like, oh, wow. It's like, okay, you've got this like intense interest. You've got this intense gift, right? Or fantastic, extraordinary gift. Okay. And hopefully it's answering the question, how do you find that unique ability? You allow it to just be what I'm gesturing like this. Allow it to be present. Okay, allow it to be visible. Meeting time limit might be over soon. May request conclude the meeting. in 5 minutes, if that would be okay. Okay, so hopefully that's answering that question. Okay, and then with gifts, be careful like finding these unique gifts. And then if a individual's called gifted, they may take that literally and think they're great at everything. And then when they run into sort of difficulties, they'll be like, well, I'm gifted. Why can't I figure this out or something like that? So make certain to not so much isolate gifts, but let them know it's kind of like, okay, this is how you can integrate this gift. This is how you can integrate that gift, because gifted may be a bit too broad or general, and they just may think they're the best, at everything, and so let them know what it is, how they can apply their gifts would be good. And so hopefully this has been helpful, talking about the difference between mirroring and masking, I guess the overlap too. And so do have a great, like I said, I don't, wherever you're watching, great day, great afternoon, great evening, and great time supporting others. Thank you so much. Oh gosh, there's another question here. I was about to end this on this end. How do you start the process of making your family less judgmental and willing to see you without your mask? Oh gosh, I do believe I don't have enough time to answer that sort of question. And like I could start talking about, what methods, a couple of different methods to do that sort of thing, but you can email me. Here, I'll put the email that I've got. Oops. There we go. So I've got an email address right there. So I'll just, I posted that in the chat for this Zoom meeting. I can say the email too. That's johndavidberdahl@gmail.com. JohnDavidBerdahl@gmail.com. Okay, so how do you start the process of making your family less judgmental? You don't. And that's not to say that you ought not to try and have conversations with people, but if they are judgmental, that's their reality. Okay, and what I found is that you can spend days and days, you can spend weeks and weeks, months and months, years and years trying and trying and trying to get a person to be the type of person that you think they ought to be. But think about this, you're not accepting that person for who they are if you're trying to change them so much. And I'm not saying, hey, you're the problem. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying if you believe you're supposed to be accepted, you have to accept them for who they are first. All right, that's like the first step in realizing that, you may be autistic and you may not understand the world in a certain way or for a certain reason. They do not understand the world or your world in a certain way or for a certain reason. And you ought to accept that, okay? And then that can lead to, yes, a very powerful, a very impactful, a very affecting sort of change. When you realize, oh, that's the type of person this person is. And I'm not saying, hey, condone bad behavior. I'm not saying that. And I'm not saying, like celebrate someone being a jerk, or someone being, again, maybe mean or harmful or something like that. But realize that, okay, that's how you perhaps cope with all of this. That's your coping mechanism, is judgment or judging. And when you realize, first, that you may not need to change them, but change your circumstances and not so much need their approval. That's when things start to change. When you realize, you know what, I can walk away from this and I don't have to spend my time trying to correct you, but making this life that I've got more full. And that's what I definitely tell students. Don't try and fit in, fill out. So hopefully that helps kind of briefly, is just recognize, realize, accept that this person may not be able to praise you, may not be able to accept you, may not be able to tolerate you because of their feelings. Maybe they have an underlying condition themselves, And so basically make your own life. And if you're supposed to be together, you will be. I'm kind of in that situation myself. And so hopefully that's answering that question a little bit. I'm not saying quit, don't quit, but perhaps don't try and put all of your energies, into altering someone else, but just adding to your own life, you know. So hopefully that answers that question a little bit. And again, I've put the email that I've got in the chat, and the email that I do have is johndavidberdahl@gmail.com. I'm also on Facebook at Really John David, Instagram at Really John David, TikTok at Really John David, YouTube. You can check out the documentary that I'm working on. It's pretty swell. Oh, good. Okay. Yeah. So the email's been added, and I'm working on a documentary film called I'll Start From Here. That does make sense, especially when it comes to the double empathy problem. Thank you for this. Oh, yes, you're very, very welcome. And hopefully it hasn't been too kind of basic. Hopefully it's been, I don't know about easy to understand, but it's really complex, and that's what these ideas, mirroring and masking, can be really tough to explain to people, especially when they don't exhibit them or utilize them or something like that, when they don't go through them. When they're not aware of them, it can be that can be so alien to some people. Like, why would you copy? It doesn't understand, why would you copy so much? So yeah, you're very, very welcome for this. And once again, do just take care of yourselves. Do help out as much as you can. Do the most good right now with the people around you. And thank you so much. Thank you so very, very much.